Hello and welcome everyone to another installment of the SSCAIT report, where we cast games featuring StarCraft AI and occasionally human versus AI games from Schnail. Today I'll be your host, Chobo Swaggins, aka Jealous from Team Liquid, as Nightcat is on vacation this week, so let's all wish him safe travels and a well-deserved break. Without further ado, let's jump right into the first game, where we see Stardust, the reigning AI champion, spawning as the red Protoss at the top right of uh, Roadrunner. And next to him, spawning in the top right, we have Crazio, the purple Terran. And let's see how the games go. This map is notable for its terrain features. We have some neutral buildings in the middle. We have some bridges here that make it difficult for Protoss armies to engage against defensive positions here, but it's also difficult for the Terran to move out against a concave of units, which we know that Stardust is more than capable of producing. Behind this, we see Crazio going for an 11 Rex, quite standard so far. Stardust going for a gateway, so no proxy shenanigans, no real cheese coming out of either player as of right now. Most likely we'll see this develop into a relatively standard game. Crazio generally opting to go for a more defensive position. Now we're looking at the sorry, I just had to read a message. It's actually going to be 13cc. Interesting choice from Crazio. Generally speaking, you generally see 14cc or 15cc from humans, which are going for the same build. Maybe it's due to the worker efficiency from the AI, allowing for a slightly earlier production of units, of the command center. And here we are seeing a follow-up with a second depot and a gas being added as well. Also a bunker at the front. Not choosing to utilize the defensive position of the bridges too much, but possibly just trying to stay closer as well to the repairing SCVs, which would be mining at the natural. Behind this, we see Stardust is made a zealot, but is not being aggressive with it. The SCV finally scouts and is going to find the Nexus here. The Nexus at the natural, so economic openings from both players. Stardust definitely more well known for their Dragoon heavy play, which we're seeing most likely it transition into here with three gateways coming up. Stardust, on the other hand, should be adding their factory, and yes, indeed, the factory is almost complete at this point. Let's see the army count just to see 2 Marines in the bunker. That's quite standard. Zealot is going to try to chase down an SCV, is going to encounter the bunker here, and is going to not choose to engage here. Let's see how the movement here. Yeah, the Zealot moved out of the way for the Dragoon, but neither unit is capable of engaging with this yet, as it seems that the range upgrade is just now completing. So soon we might see this bunker being peppered with Dragoon shots, but the SCVs are already prepared to repair here. They've been pulled quite early, which I'm not sure if this that was like I like that, a little cute. It was like a mini repair for a second there. Nice repositioning of the SCV there. Interestingly enough, pulling the SCVs back, and the siege tank is kind of in an awkward position, but might be able to use this high ground to shoot down on it, shoot down on the ramp and the Dragoons here. There is quite a number of Dragoons now. They had the opportunity to run past, but not going to happen here. The siege tank is in a great defensive position here. This is a place where Dragoons can't shoot uphill and hit it, but the siege tank is providing adequate coverage for the bunker, and with multiple siege tanks now, this should be an easily defensible position for Crazio. Behind this, Stardust going for a third base, a third nexus, and adding more gateways as well to increase that production. And we're starting to see that potential concave forming already outside these bridges. The barracks is granting additional vision to siege tanks. Siege tanks, for those of you who don't know, can actually shoot further than they can see. So this is this is why you're seeing this happen here. We're going to lower the volume a little bit. It seems to be a bit loud on my end. Let's see. So yeah, it's going to be difficult to move out for Crazio, I believe, even with the siege tanks inching forward against this Dragoon mass. Behind us, Stardust looks to be taking another main base for themselves as their fourth base, as Crazio techs up to a starport and has double armory upgrade spinning. Going to go into that science facility soon, I imagine, in order to continue those upgrades churning. Factory count is quite low at only 3, but it should be noted that a very defensive play from Crazio, as well as in placing all these turrets, which were probably not that necessary, especially against Stardust, who generally goes for ground army gateway man style play. Rarely is there a shuttle with DTs or Reavers or anything of that nature. Vulture's starting to lay mines a little bit, perhaps trying to inch forward closer to taking this third base. It is a gas base, so that would be good for that Terran player. Generally, you are limited to the amount of add-ons you can have on your factories by the amount of gases that you have. So that's why we're seeing 2 factories with 2 add-ons. Third add-on coming up now. I don't think that he'll have the gas to support this and the continuous upgrades from the armories, but maybe it's in anticipation of taking this third base. And both players are kind of at a standstill here. Neither can really engage in this position. The tanks are going to have a difficult time pushing out, as I said before, and the Dragoons can't really push in through these narrow bridges, so both players are content to macro up. Vulture does find this expansion here, takes down a probe, but is going to get chased away by Dragoons. I like the fact that the AI did not overcommit here. They only sent a couple of Dragoons here. Some human players tend to overcommit and send a lot of army to clear up a small threat, and as a result end up weakening their forward position and allowing the opponent to move out. It seems that Stardust, now that they have reached almost max, has been trying to poke in there and do some damage, but the repairing SCVs at the front are keeping the tank numbers alive. If we take a look at the army real quick, it's 12 siege tanks against 31 Dragoons. Crazio, perhaps unsurprisingly, is a bit behind in terms of army count because of the fact that they've only been on 3 factories this whole time. Well, actually, now that I notice it, there are 2 more factories up here. Third command center is coming up at the 3rd base. 5th base coming up for Stardust. So this is shaping up to be a very standard, if hyperactive, TVP. Hyperactive in the sense that we have 79,000 APM controlling these individual units. We have D-matrices from the science vessels coming down on the siege tanks as well. Arbiter finally now coming out for Stardust. Stardust has apparently recently been working on Arbiter play. From what I know, they are not capable of doing recalls as of yet, but they do stasis, I believe. They also provide cloaking, which can be a bit problematic, but Crazio does have a science vessel out and does have, of course, the ComSat stations, which seem to have been used a couple of times already, so possibly scouting out areas of the map. I like this mine coverage here. It also gives information on the army's movements, but as you can see here, the majority of the movement of the army is out front here. This is a great stasis, locking down 2 siege tanks and some vultures. Might have made sense to stasis more siege tank heavy areas like over here. It would have delayed the move out from Crazio, and behind this, Stardust is going to be able to take their 6th base as well. Placing a cannon here to take down that mine. Interesting stuff. And yeah, this is going to stay in this stalemate position for quite some time, I am inclined to believe, especially with stasis slowing down in small engagements. But as Crazio reaches max, this might become more and more of a viable push scenario for Crazio. Stardust, of course, suffering from the fact that they don't have any higher tech besides the stasis and the Arbiter. Something like Templar with Storm could be quite effective here. Shuttles with Zealot drops could work as well. And ooh, we're seeing a big, massive glitch here. Sometimes siege tanks, when they unsiege and re-siege, they can cause this stacking issue. And it's going to be interesting to see how this resolves. They can't siege until they have resolve their position, so a lot of these siege tanks are basically useless for now. Some of them are going to pop out going forwards, which is going to work in Crazio's favor, as Crazio's trying to take more and more land. In the meantime, behind this, Stardust is trying to push up into this 3rd base, and there's not really any defense here. There's 1 siege tank, 1 vulture, and a lot of mines, but the mines have gone down. 1 siege tank might be enough to hold on for now, but at the same time, there was a massive engagement here, and wow, okay. Let's get off that production tab real quick. I just saw like 500 pylons being made in armies. Looking at the engagement here and looking at the expansion pattern, I have to feel that Crazio is going to start pushing up towards this 12 o'clock main base where all the tech is, but we already know that Stardust is capable of remaking the tech. Crazio behind this has taken their 4th base as well, at least for now. They've also maintained control of their 3rd base, which is crucial for a victory. The siege tank heavy play we saw earlier in Willie T versus Stardust, where Willie T used heavy siege tank counts in order to take a W off of Stardust. Stardust, perhaps because of the fact that they went for that expansion and didn't apply that early Dragoon pressure mass that we are so used to seeing, kind of allowed this situation to occur, because it, as I mentioned before, it is incredibly difficult to push through this position. However, it should also be noted that Stardust does have the majority of the rest of the map, even though Crazio seems to be aiming to take a 5th and eventually a 6th base here. Split map scenario, sorry, will obviously favor the Terran here. Let me just try to move this real quick, since for some reason it's now not big enough. It's probably because I tried to zoom in a little bit, but alright, that's good enough. This is a really difficult position to be in for Stardust. The Dragoons will never have a favorable engagement against anything on the ramp, but at the same time, Crazio is going to have a difficult time pushing upwards into the main base. However, with all the production locked down here and all the tech up here, it is going to be quite costly for Stardust to lose any of this position here. The Arbiter providing some coverage, but the Science Vessels allowing for some revealing of the enemy army as well. Gateways are being thrown down at other bases, but not in significant enough number. And as I say that, we are seeing a lot here. And what is this? I mean, we saw that a bunch of pylons were being placed, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have all these pylons. I'm really curious as to what this is. It doesn't even wall from vultures, if vulture harass was to be a possibility here. So not really sure what's going on. Crazio in the meantime is continuing to push into the main base. Frankly, at this point, what a lot of human players would do is they would leave enough here to kind of contain and prevent the Protoss army from running out, and then send the rest of the army on a warpath to take down the expansions, which have less production at them. That means that less army will be able to come out, and plus consider the fact that a lot of the supply is locked in here. EMP coming down on the army just a little bit early, maybe did not hit the Arbiters, it seems. The Arbiter can't click it because it's running around. Yeah, they still have energy, so stasis is still in the cards. A lot of siege tanks here, 40 siege tanks. That seems to be the counter to what Stardust does, which is very heavy Dragoon-oriented play. Just a couple of vultures preventing the zealots, and the climb up the ramp is going a little bit slowly, but again, this is a split map scenario where Crazio is now holding the advantageous position. And ooh, we're going into battle cruisers. Interesting choice. Battle cruisers do get stasis, do suffer badly from stasis because air units stack, but it is an interesting choice. It's a way to develop play for sure here. And let's see. Yeah, and even probes aren't being idled here. Maybe it's because there's already maximum efficiency at the other bases. There's no point in bringing them forward and risking incurring heavy losses if a push doesn't travel that way. Still slowly but surely pushing into this main base, and at this point I don't think there's really any way that Stardust can hold this off. The economy, the position, it's all in Crazio's favor. Crazio doing a fantastic job, and now finally splitting their army into two pieces, is going to start pushing down the remaining mining bases of Stardust here, is going to find this nexus. These gateways will start going down as well. I thought I saw an animation of something getting attacked here for a second. Should be noted that Irradiate is being cast on units as well. Zealots, Dark Templar, and High Templar all perish to Irradiate, but none of the other Protoss units do. It's an interesting choice there. Factories, barracks, so I guess maybe the theory was to transition potentially into battlecruiser marine medic, which is a potentially viable composition, especially against an AI that doesn't use storms, especially with splitting of marines and medics against storms, which AI are capable of doing at a superhuman level. If you want to see more of that, you can take a look at how Dragon plays. And let's see, yeah, I mean, I think this game is practically over. I'm just going to speed up through the rest of it. I think we're going to see a cleanup operation here. There is going to be some resistance, of course, from Stardust, some stasis here and there, but now with the main base and the tech going down and the other main base going down, there's actually not going to be much room for placing tech in the first place, and supply now 200 to 56. It's going to be a wrap for for this game, and I'm going to answer a message real quick as we watch the cleanup over here. Alright, sorry about that. Yeah, the cleanup is continuing, and it's desperately trying to rebuild a basis, Stardust, but Crazio is floating to 6,000 minerals, almost 6,000 gas, and I think at this point we can basically call it a game. GG, congratulations to Crazio for taking down the #1 AI in Stardust. I'm excited to see some of the implementation from Stardust that I would expect to see, having played against Stardust's anti-human build in last May, I believe. No, this past May. there was much more use of higher tech units such as arbiters and carriers. So I would be interested to see that being brought into the AI fold. This is from the basal ladder. I think that Stardust could definitely benefit from that, but perhaps holding their cards close to their chest until they have a finalized version of that build. Of that strategy at least. And oh, interestingly enough, those were not for Marines, they were for Ghosts, and I'm guessing for Lockdown as well. So maybe Lockdown with dropships, that's maybe the explanation for the additional starports as well. But the physics labs does indicate to me that there was intent for going for battle cruisers. Anyway, again, yeah, congratulations to Crazio. This is a good game. Moving on to the next game, we have Microwave spawning at the top right as the orange Zerg, and they are up against Monster spawning at the bottom left as the purple Zerg on La Mancha. So La Mancha, very similar to maps like Fighting Spirit. It has a high ground main, low ground nat, 4 players with rotational symmetry. It's nothing that we're not too unfamiliar with. One difference being, of course, that the third is way more open, but in ZVZ you rarely see advancement to that stage of the game. A lot of the games are decided in the Zergling and/or Zergling and Mutalisk stages. A lot of it is determined by build order as well. And speaking of build order, we're seeing Microwave committing to that first gas. There are some builds that involve adding the gas and then canceling it to give a temporary advantage in drones because of the fact that building the extractor takes away one supply, then you build the drone, then you cancel the extractor, and that gives you an extra drone. So it looks like it is going to be gas first into spawning pool, which kind of infers to me that this might be a one hatch Mutalisk build. It's important to get that that gas early on in that build, and one hatch Mutalisk is definitely incredibly all in. Behind this monster is going for one hatch Mutalisk as well, it seems, and actually Microwave has taken the drones off gas. I'm curious to see why that is. It looks like the first 100 gas is for speed, the second one is for the layer. I think that the layer could have been made earlier, and I'm not sure if it's actually that beneficial to go for such an early gas if you're not going to go for an earlier layer. Clearly, Monster's build is going to have the layer up first, which means earlier Spire. But maybe with the travel distance, it is going to work out in Microwave's favor. Microwave is ahead in workers, possibly due to the greater investment into Zerglings by Monster. Spire now coming down finally for Monster, and the Spire is going to start up for Microwave as well, very closely following that of Monster. Monster does have a significant Ling advantage, though, I believe. 16 to 12, that is 18 to 12 actually, is actually 20 to 12 is certainly enough to force an engagement, even uphill against this ramp. We see that lovely concave that we see from Monster here, double layered. All of the Zerglings facing the right direction means that they don't waste any frames doing turning around to engage against any potential forces here. But Microwave, Monster, despite the fact that they have the earlier Spire and the higher Zergling count, they do still have that lower worker count. I don't think that the Mutalisks are going to be out in time to do any real threat to Microwave. The Microwave's Mutalisks are, of course, going to spawn inside their main base, which is going to happen faster. And actually, the Mutalisks, they take down a few Zerglings on the way out, which, of course, does slow them down a little bit. However, an Overlord might fall for Microwave. No, the Mutalisks come in here to engage, and let's keep track of the army numbers here. And actually, it's going to be Microwave who's going to climb in Mutalisk count a little bit earlier than Monster, with Monster catching back up, and now it's 5 to 5. It's going to be a very tight game. It's going to come down to the Mutalisk Micro, which is, of course, all coding here. I'm failing to drag my screen fast enough to keep up with these Mutalisks. Monster trying to do some backwards shots with the Mutalisks, but seems to have taken the worst of that engagement. 5 Mutalisks against 3 Mutalisks now, 5 to 2. That's a serious advantage for Microwave, and Microwave sees that as an opportunity to run in with the Zerglings, but the Zergling count is still too high for Monster. Monster also adding a Spore Colony, as well, which is a good move that I like. I'm imagining that this might be a second one. It's a little bit far away, though. I would have maybe preferred to see it like over here so that the spores can do coverage for each other, or maybe over here to cover the gas as well. Only one drone on gas, it should be noted, as the worker count is now 8 to 6 in advantage of Microwave. So Microwave showing off some great Mutalisk control here to take that advantage, despite having a layer Spire earlier on in the game, and the fact that they had to take drones off gas at some point. So I'm not quite sure how the math would work out. It's possibly very tight. I'm sure that Microwave knows what they're doing, though. One thing that should be noted is that Monster has had that Zergling advantage since early on in the game, but hasn't really utilized it for anything, and I think that that's a big mistake. An Overlord might go down here as well. Overlord does indeed go down, but Monster is far from being supply blocked. Only 9 workers, 8 supply and army, and the economy is clearly struggling. Worker count now is climbing to 17 from Microwave, who's taking a commanding position in this game, I believe. 2 spore colonies of their own here, one protecting the mineral line and gas, one protecting the tech. I like this positioning here. Another one being placed in the natural in case their Mulisks do start coming out from Monster, which they are. We are slowly climbing in Mulisk count here, but Microwave actually has halted their production of Mulisks, possibly in favor of getting that economy up. Getting that second gas will allow them to propel their Mulisk count at an exponential rate compared to Monster here. As soon as that gas starts going, I'm guessing that Microwave is waiting for the saturation necessary to start taking that gas, and of course adding those spore colonies as well is going to be huge. So I think that Microwave should be in a very commanding position in this game. But as should be noted, Monster is climbing up in Mutalisk count while Microwave is not. Okay, finally Microwave starts adding, perhaps having gotten vision and counting the enemy's Mutalisk count, or perhaps just having reached that optimal position in their economy where they restart making Mutalisks. Move out now from Monster, who is still economically disadvantaged, but has climbed up in workers of their own, despite the fact that they are only at half of the enemy count. 10 mutas now against 6. I'm trying to keep up. It's a little bit unnatural too, because you drag kind of like in the opposite direction of where you want to go. But I get the decision there, and yeah, no engagement is really viable for Monster here because of the superior Mutalisk count from Microwave. And Microwave, I think, is going to just continue to take advantages here against Monster in terms of economy. And while we're at the stalemate, we are seeing some additional units being made. Some buildings being made. It's going to be 3 hatcheries for Monster, but Microwave already operating on 4 and looks to be thinking about a 5th base now. Yes, indeed. 3rd base, sorry, 5th hatchery. And continuing to pen in a Monster is Microwave. I do think that all of that investment into Zerglings just simply did not pay off for Monster. They were there for safety and precautions, I'm guessing, while they were going for a 1-hatch Mutalisk play, but Microwave just simply went for a less safe 1-hatch Mutalisk play, and as a result came out on top and managed to expand their economy faster. And this should lead to the eventual demise of Monster here, I think. And again, this is a theme, I guess, of what we're seeing today, is the titans of the scene are getting taken down by their opponents. Perhaps their reign at the top is coming to a close as more AI authors have had the time to investigate the opponent's builds and optimize their responses to what the enemies are doing. This is part of the ever-flowing, ever-growing arms race between AI developers that has been happening and pushing the scene to such astronomical heights as we're seeing here. Using incredible movement, incredible build order, efficiency, reactions, and this is a desperate attempt at an expansion from Monster, but Monster seems to be... Oh, we actually are these Devourers. Yes, Devourers would prove instrumental at taking down the Mutalisk count of the opponent, but they are being left here in a vulnerable positions. There are more of them coming out here. A hatchery attempt here should be denied as well from Microwave, and it should be noted that that Monster's main minerals are soon to run out. So even if Microwave never opts to get engaged here, and Monster's trying to fly out, is not going to pick off any army here, is going to pick off one there, it seems. Scourge trying to chase down the Mules, do get some connections there. More hatcheries being thrown down in desperation by Monster. Zerglings being pushed back. Is Microwave going to be in trouble here? I mean, looking at the army counts, they're quite comparable. The addition of Devourers could be instrumental here for any consequent engagement. The Mutalisk count is close to even for both players, but again, keep in mind that Microwave has had that superior economy for much longer. 53 workers to 26 now, still double the count of the enemy, but the Zergling count is in favor of Monster, so ground engagements would be advantageous for Monster. Unfortunately, the air supremacy with 28 Mulisks and 8 Devourers is going to deny this expansion attempt from Monster. Monster is going to start running out of minerals in their main base very quickly, because keep in mind that, lower mineral patch count, the fact that we're at 3 right now, means that low worker efficiency is going to continue decreasing even with the additional hatcheries. So I think that this game is practically over. We could see a couple more engagements here, but no, the Devourers don't even seem to be interested in engaging. I haven't seen them shoot yet. They should be attacking those Mulisks instead of falling like this. I think that this might be a mistake in terms of micro. But even with just the Mutalisk and Scourge that Microwave has on the map right now, should be enough to take favorable engagements. 38 Mutas to 17 now, and yeah, that should be enough to win the game now. The Mutalisks decide to run in. Finally, the Devourers engage against the enemy Mutalisks, but no, deciding to pull back out at the last moment. Down to 9 workers as Monster, and yeah, I think that having been suffocated like this throughout the majority of the game, this is now officially over. There's really no recourse for Monster. There's not enough minerals left in their base to win this anymore. Even if all those Zerglings had survived and went out to engage, there are sunken colonies. There are going to be more Mulisks and more Zerglings coming out. And yeah, fantastic game from Microwave. Interesting build order choice. I would love to hear more thoughts from the author about why the early gas build is chosen when then drones are taken off of gas. It seems like it might be it just appears to be not at the most efficient, but maybe there are some calculations going on that are beyond my understanding. Of course, I'm not a Zerg player. So anyway, that was a great game 2. Let's move on to game 3, where we have Locutus spawning at the top left of Fighting Spirit as the blue Protoss, and the bottom left we have Steamhammer, the orange Zerg. So Locutus is the AI from the creator of Stardust. The creator's name is Crazio on Discord. Fantastic games from both of these AI. This AI destroyed me pretty badly when I played the first man vs machine matches 2 years ago or so. Steamhammer recently beat me on ladder, the Schnell ladder, by playing a very control-centric, map control-centric ZVP style, so definitely no slouch in their own right. Locutus going for a Forge Fast Expand here, and possibly going to go into Dragoons, which is something that we've been seeing recently in the Protoss meta again in all 3 matchups, is that Dragoons are incredibly effective. And is this... I think, yeah, this hatchery is properly placed, I think. Looks like to be a 12 hatch, no, sorry, yeah, 12 hatch 11 pool from Steamhammer into more drones. So very standard stuff right here. Scouting the middle to see if there's any proxies here. 2 cannons coming up for Locutus, which is definitely not efficient against 12 hatch. Against 12 hatch, you can almost go for, I think you can go for Nexus before Forge, or you can go for Nexus before, Gateway before cannons, stuff like that. Adding 2 cannons definitely hurts the Protoss efficiency in the early game and gives the Zerg a little bit of an advantage, of one that Steamhammer seems intent on advancing further by taking their 3rd base here at the 6 o'clock position, perhaps opting not to take this base since it is so close to Locutus, but it should be noted that this position is safer. There is only one real entryway here, if the natural can be held at the same time. So let's look at the build order decisions here. This gateway, by the way, might be a little bit unprotected from Hydra-centric play. Hydras can easily position themselves here outside the range of the cannons, but the cannons do prevent most Zergling-based aggression at this juncture. And let's look at what's being added here. We're seeing a 2nd gateway and a Cybernetics core, which Steamhammer is aware of. This kind of point is indicative of potentially that Dragoon-centric play that I was discussing earlier. Normally you wouldn't add that 2nd gateway. You would be saving your minerals and going for a starport and a citadel if you are a human player. I meant Stargate. I don't know how I got it wrong for both races in this one broadcast. More Zerglings being added. I like this move. Generally, you want to add a couple Zerglings after the Protoss gets their gateway up, just in order to prevent any Zealots from coming out and harassing your economy. This is kind of a fragile state for the Zerg player, because they did double expand in a short amount of time, while delaying unit production, is now going to draw that Zealot away and is going to engage with it. Nice little play here from both AI, kind of playing with space here, but it is going to be advantageous for the Zerglings here. They are going to get that surround and take down that first Zealot, but the Zealot is not the crux of the army here. It is going to be the Dragoon production we were expecting to see, and the Overlord is going to be caught out here, but Steamhammer has ample space in their economy. It's actually going to be 3 hatch Mutalisk, and the timing on the build seems really good. We're seeing 8 Mutalisks come out right away. This could be a good way to hold off against the Dragoons in conjunction with the Zerglings, with so many targets, the Dragoons being low in number still after the Forge Fast Expand. And I like this. When you make a sunken colony, it ends up with 100 HP less than the creep colony. So possibly unsure of how much HP would be left, they canceled and restarted the Sunken Colony a few times. But now the Mulisks are going to start chasing down the Dragoons. I'm sorry about that, I'm trying to move the screen. The Mulisks are going to start chasing down the Dragoon, and preventing that Dragoon mass from spiraling out of control does seem to be a key factor in winning against Locutus and Stardust and other Protoss AI at this time. Nice splitting from the Dragoons, but it's not going to be enough. They're kiting the Mutalisks pretty well and have taken down a couple, it seems. They are pretty hurt, it seems, as well. Taking a look at the army counts, we have 7 Mutalisks against 9 Dragoons. The Mutalisk production has halted, but Hydralisks are being made instead. Hydralisks fare very well against Dragoons as well, but Dragoons do have the superior range and the superior HP, so it's possible to kite back quite effectively against them. I imagine it's easier to program Hydralisk engagements against Dragoon heavy armies than it is to program for Zergling Saurans in conjunction with Mutalisks. But now Zealots are actually also being thrown in there, and Zealots are going to fare well against the Zerglings, but not that great against the Hydralisk. Let's take a look at the upgrades. +1 attack just now coming in. +1 of everything ground-based is coming in for Steamhammer, who is now moving up to 5 bases. This is kind of that style that I was talking about. Definitely going for that map control approach. But the Dragoons, even though small in number, have made their way into this expansion. The drones burrowing, I like this defensive choice. This is another thing that Steamhammer used to great effect against me, because I went for a Reaver opening, and that kind of backfired as soon as we saw the burrowing take away that potential advantage. But the Dragoons, they might take down this hatchery. Actually, the reaction is quite slow from Steamhammer. Partially, I think, due to the fact that they had to reprioritize their tech at least twice. I mean, they went from well, not twice. I guess they had to change their composition twice. They went from Zerglings to Zerglings and Mutalisks, and now Zerglings, Hydralisk, and Mutalisks getting triple upgrades. Hive Tech is done, and they are getting that Adrenal Gland, I believe this one, upgrade. I think that that's the one that is allows for the faster attack speed, and that is also called Cracklings. More hatcheries being thrown down to increase that production, and the Corsair goes down to the Scourge. Zealots are moving around. They don't seem to be speed lots at the moment, though. Let's take a look back. Yeah, Citadel just finished, it seems. I'm sorry, I lied. That was from before. Templar Archives is done. We are seeing Templar out on the map, and another base could go down, and this one has the Defiler Mount here. Behind this, Locutus somehow has managed to hold on to additional bases. Perhaps Steamhammer stretched out a little bit too far before massing the army necessary to deny bases. Denying bases and holding on to your own is very important. It's more important than the number of bases that you have. Could keep in mind that this entire time, those drones weren't mining. That was an economy operating at like 75% of its efficiency at best, considering the fact that Locutus already has a significant worker lead as well, which is not entirely abnormal in this matchup and at this stage, but it does pose danger for Steamhammer. A lot of armies seems to be trapped here behind this gateway. Perhaps Locutus could consider taking down this gateway. The Hydralisks are starting to push back the enemy army here, and now they're starting to push into this expansion here. There's no defense at all here, no gateway production either. I don't know why the Hydralisks decide to back off, maybe trying to reprioritize in a way. Interesting hatchery and situation here with the Dragoon standing here and not attacking it. This is all interesting stuff. We're seeing the Greater Spire come in as well, so might be following up with Guardians as well. The full menagerie of the Zerg forces going to be utilized against the Protoss here. Plague coming down on the expansion as well. Finally, a cannon coming down in that base. A couple Dragoons and an Archon are trying to push into the natural here, but the numbers aren't great enough. Ultralisk Cavern is even over here. So yeah, it's just a little bit of everything built from Steamhammer, which is incredibly hard to counter. At the same time, though, the Zealots do manage to take down that hatchery, which is going to hurt the economy of Steamhammer. Steamhammer is actually on fewer bases right now than Locutus, so it's definitely not all said and done with at this moment. There is the possibility that Locutus could come back in this, but so far it seems that, I mean, what am I saying though? The supply is 2-to-1 in favor. I just don't see it being utilized at all because all this army is trapped. If this army could bust down this gateway and get out of here, I think that Steamhammer could have been in a world of hurt right now, especially as I mentioned before with the lower base count. They haven't even taken this main base yet. Should be noted though, more gateways coming up in no man's land here. Zealots are the only units that seem to be capable of getting out here. It's an interesting situation to deal with. Let's see. I have to, this must be a mistake that cost the game here, to be honest with you. This Dragoon seems to be the culprit. as the rest of the army seems to be moving around, or at least trying to leave. And this Dragoon as well is not helping at all. Now Defilers and Ultras are out on the map. They are going to be able to push into this largely range-based force. Dragoons, Cannons, and Archons do no damage under Dark Swarm. This base is going down to Zerglings, Ultralisk, and Hydralisk, and I guess it's just unfortunate to see that this game is going to be decided by what seems to be a clear error in pathing. There has been some movement here, but not all that much, and the army is still trapped in here, so I mean, some army is managing to sneak out somehow, and bases are still being attempted to be made all over the map. Finally, we're seeing some army be sent out, but not all of it. I really feel like this ball is so devastating that this ball could have been doing a lot more earlier on in this game, and even if it comes out now, I fear that it might be too little too late. And the Dragoons need those Archons to be in front against these Zerglings and those Ultralisks, and now we're seeing how some of that army does come out. It's mostly due to the fact that there's stacking issues, but with Guardians, Zerglings, Ultralisks, Defilers, this army is going to get absolutely crushed now that Steamhammer is pumping on all levels, taking up the rest of the map, and yeah, Plague even coming down on those Dragoons, weakening them by about half their HP. And the Archons getting plagued as well, the buildings and the gateways. And yeah, this is just a devastating push here from Steamhammer. It doesn't show any signs of weakening the economy from Locutus in tatters as they're locked down to one base that is being defended by 2 cannons. And Steamhammer looks like they're not ready to push further as of yet, possibly because they located this base, sending Guardians and Hydralisks there just out of interest. I'm going to look at the upgrades. 3-3 going for the Protoss, but the Zerg is already on 3-3 for ground army, and actually no ranged upgrades. This was Hydralisk range earlier that we saw, I believe. Army finally moving out for Locutus, possibly using the lull in action, and maybe an overcommitment from Steamhammer to take down this base, which is still up, by the way. But I think it's too little too late. The army is not going to be able to withstand the continued production from the Zerg, and yeah, got split up and chewed up here. Lots of goon soup on the battlefield here, and yeah, there's just not much left in it now for Locutus, who is running on fumes, the last possible, actually literally fumes. There's only gas here that is being collected. So yeah, I think this game is just about over, and I'm gonna get a sip of water. Alright, let's speed up the cleanup here as we move on to the next game in our broadcast. We are going to see... Well, in this game we were promised Guardians, which we did see, so I know that the next promise is going to be accurate. I won't spoil it, but it should be another good game. More Plague, more Dark Swarm, more Consume, more army pushing everywhere, cleaning up here. Yeah, there's not much point in continuing to watch this. Let's move on to the next game, where we have Monster spawning at the 12 o'clock position of destination up against ADIAS, aka a SSCAIT clone, spawning at the 6 o'clock position as the Purple Terran. For those of you who don't know, SSCAIT was the AI developed by Samsung, the Korean company, in conjunction with pro gamer inputs such as Best, one of the best Protoss players of all time, helped make this Terran AI a force to be reckoned with a couple of years ago. As far as I know, development has halted, or at least public development has halted on this AI, and a lot of the AI that it's up against now have found ways to beat it, but it is still a competitor in its own right. Monster sending out an early drone to scout, is something that we see quite often in AI versus AI matches. They feel that the value of information is much greater than the economic losses incurred by scouting so early. ADIAS, in the meantime, is going for that gas, so possibly we're going to see a factory-oriented play, possibly even something involving a starport shortly thereafter. Monster, using this information, is going to go for that hatchery before the spawning pool, more economically oriented after taking that economic loss of using the drone to scout. When the Marine comes out, though, it should be able to track down this drone eventually and possibly deny further scouting. The drone is going to verify the presence of the factory, should be aware of the amount of workers that it sees on gas, which is indicative of the fact that we're not going to see a starport opening because of the fact that SCVs are not mining it with the best efficiency. There's only one here. Overlord is here. Is going to get lost. I'm not sure if there's any benefit to bring that Overlord here. It is going to end up dying to this Marine. The drone does get saved though. Factory is up, and the first thing that's being made is a Vulture. Very nice. But that hatchery is already up for Monster in the natural. A sunken colony here would prevent any harassment. This is a decent placement. I would have maybe preferred it over here because that way you can cover entrances from both bridges. Maybe over here might even be better. But because this side of the mineral line should still be open and the Vulture can enter through this bridge, it is going to go through the top bridge. It's not going to find a way in because of the placement of the sunken here. Zerglings are blocking the ramp to prevent any potential run-bys, and behind this, ADIAS is going to go for an expansion. Very, very standard play. Armory coming up shortly thereafter, and an engineering base. Potentially Goliath-centric play, anticipating Mutalisks from Monster perhaps, which I think is a good guess. It's for the standard play in TVZ. Layer is coming up for Monster now, and it should be completed very shortly. Vultures blocking both exits to prevent any Zerglings from coming out. Bunkers positioned well on the bridges here on destination, and there are going to be some Marines in there, just one. Goliaths are now coming out as well from one factory. The second factory started a little bit late, I think, perhaps due to the fact that it was a factory opening into command center. This is a build that actually Nightcat has been playing recently, so I think that he might enjoy watching this when he gets a chance to, if he does so after his vacation or before. He's been trying to perfect this build and use it for CPL, which, by the way, spoiler alert, he did win his matches earlier this week in the semifinals of the CPL, so congratulations to Nightcat for that. 3 factories now coming up for ADIAS, and it's going to be constant Goliath production and turret production in order to keep these safe. I would have maybe liked to see some turrets over here to guard the factories until the Goliath count is sufficient to challenge the Mutalisks. Looking at the army counts, we do see 9 Mutalisks come out right away for Monster, so that's great. The Mutalisks instead, though, they're not being sent directly to the Terran main, and I'm not sure I'm a fan of this. They are going to provide coverage for this drone to make a hatchery instead. A couple of Mutalisks did seem to come in here to check out what was going on. Goliaths are being patrolled here in order to push these Mutalisks back. Mutalisks doing a couple of hits here and there, but not really achieving all too much, so it does seem like this will be evolving into a more eco-oriented map. But actually, now that I say that, ooh, that turret should have barely stayed up. A Mutalisk does go down for that error in judgment from ADIAS. More Marines being placed in this bunker, interestingly. I think that was actually, I don't know how that first Marine guy died, if it was inside the bunker, maybe it wasn't. But yeah, 12 Goliaths now is definitely certainly enough to handle 11 Mutalisks, at least on the defensive front. It is always risky to move out, though. You need enough to force an engagement from Monster. In the meantime, Vultures are still continuing to run around and verify the fact that there is indeed a third base here. Siege tank now being made, perhaps planning on pushing on this third base soon, is ADIAS, aka SCAIT. Some more Vultures still being made. I'm not sure that that's the right decision. Laying mines is good for defense against Zerglings, prevents backstabs in dangerous situations, and here are the infamous monster Zerglings burrowed in various locations, preventing expansion easily from happening. Perhaps mines can be used for that as well, because mines do trigger against burrowed units. We did see a dropship being loaded up with Vultures as well. I'm going to try to keep track of that, even though I lost it right now. Here it is. SCAIT, one of the first and few AI to make use of dropship tech, at least as a Terran. Going to drop right on the sunken, though, so I don't think that was the best utilization of those Vultures, and the Vultures indeed don't actually engage with the drones even. They instead seem to have tried to engage with the sunken. A quick burrow from Monster is going to prevent further damage, but behind this, ADIAS taking that mineral only, which is kind of tucked away in this low ground position. The Mutalisks are aware of it now, though. The base that ADIAS probably does want eventually is this high ground 4th, which does have a gas. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't opt to go here, but maybe it's because of the clunkiness of Goliath movement. It is difficult to move them from here to here to here to here to take this base. And of course, there is that Zergling there as well, which could be complicating matters. Lurkers now out on the map. This is what mines should be good for. Lurkers suffer greatly against mines because they can't attack them. Zerglings also go down in big numbers against mines. But Lurker Zergling isn't all that great against Goliath. It's not horrible. Definitely want to see more Hydralisks mixed into this composition, possibly for Monster. Monster actually has Defilers now, and Defilers are what is going to do a great job against these Goliaths, because Goliaths, of course, are ranged units, as are most Terran ground units, actually. So this could be devastating. And yeah, this base is going to go down. Now, Defiler Dark Swarm is going to go down on the bridges, which allows for consecutive pushing of Ultralisks, of Zerglings and Lurkers into the natural of ADIAS. Looks like ADIAS held on for now. It took down a couple of Defilers in the process, but this third base, oh, it actually has held on to this third base as well. The lack of Defiler here hurt a lot. I think that some workers did go down because there is a worker advantage for Monster at the moment. Monster going up to 4th base behind us, by the way. But now this is a difficult and entrenched position for Monster, and I like the fact that it's continuously sending army here, continuously forcing ADIAS to acknowledge this presence. And the swarms are just pushing in so devastatingly into the third base of the Terran. This is what I'm used to seeing, and if you caught the earlier broadcast, you would have seen me fall to this type of play as well. The third base is forced to lift off now. The Lurkers, they're not burrowing inside the Dark Swarm, but at this point I don't think it matters. There's just such a high number of them that no amount of army engaging here is going to be able to do much damage here. Should be noted, for those of you that don't know, is that Lurkers do damage under Dark Swarm, despite the fact that it seems to be a ranged attack. It's classified as a melee attack, because it's technically the spikes coming up from the ground. It's not a projectile, which is kind of what the Dark Swarm prevents, is projectile attacks, not actual ranged attacks. That is the more accurate way to say it. Zerglings and Lurkers going to start coming back through this back door, it seems again. No, instead choosing to reposition to the natural. Mines are not being used effectively enough to stem the flow of the Zerglings. Zerglings are being split very efficiently when their mines are triggered. And another push across this bridge into the bulk of the Terran forces. The siege tank count is not high enough to deny this. It's still very Vulture and Goliath heavy, and those units do not do damage under Dark Swarm. So now the natural may fall for ADIAS, who is just desperately trying to get a hold of some minerals on the map, and worker count is now plummeted to 31. The natural, it seems like it will fall, and even with these siege tanks and the vessels behind it, yeah, it's not going to be enough. Vessels are not insignificant enough number after going for a mech opening due to the gas investment. And yeah, this is a wrapperoni for ADIAS, as Monster is going to continue pushing in and taking this natural position. The third base is all that ADIAS has left to mine from. There's no gas there, which is a crucial resource when you're going for a mech composition like this. The main base is going to fall, the tech is going to fall, and yeah, Monster has sealed the deal here and taken down what was once possibly the most powerful AI for Brood War. Yeah, doing so in stellar fashion. Great work here, and the unit that we were promised here is, of course, the Defiler. And this Dark Swarm play from Monster, I would say, is probably one of the most iconic things about it. Of course, there is the concave that I talked about on the ramp earlier, which we saw against Microwave, the concave on the ramp with the Zerglings. That's of course great, but this swarm play is just monstrous, and that's why I think that this name is so appropriate for this AI. That was a fantastic game from Monster here. And yeah, we'll do one more. Let's do one more. GG. Moving into the next game, we have Monster spawning at the 12 o'clock position on Python against Banana Brain spawning at the 6 o'clock position as the teal Protoss. Monster, of course, Zerg is blue here. Now, Python is a map that's definitely one of the older maps that is in the Basil and SSCAIT map database, and part of the reason, well, first of all, it's from 2007, if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely a modern map at the time, but it was incredibly difficult for anyone to hold any respectable amount of let me phrase that better. Protoss struggle a lot with taking their natural, particularly against Zerg. Forge Fast Expand is very difficult to hold on this map because they're just such a broad choke on all of the bases, really. Pylon, Forge, Gateway still leaves you with about another gateway's worth of empty surface area here, so it's incredibly difficult to hold expansions here. And Monster here is going to open up with a spawning pool first. I'm guessing that this was an overpool. The overpool is going to complete. The second hatchery is coming down, and the first few Zerglings are going to be made. 4 Zerglings for now. Looks like Forge into Nexus here from Banana Brain, so a much more economic opening than what we saw from Locutus. Is going to be a tight timing. The Zerglings are already out. The cannon does take some time to build. There is a drone here. Zerglings are not going to start coming here in number though, so I think that the cannon will go up in time. The Zerglings were more intent on taking down that scouting probe inside the main base, which it did do so. Gas coming down before the third hatchery, which leads me to believe that it is going to be a tech-oriented build for the Zerg player. Third hatchery coming up now for Monster. Again, this is also a very long way to travel, and this is a difficult base for Zerg to hold, and eventually Protoss as well too. But it just shows kind of like how against the grain is Python compared to more modern maps that we've seen throughout this broadcast and other ones. Behind this, it looks like we are seeing that cybernetics tech, which is quite standard. Normally, if you are going for some sort of tech like Stargate and Citadel, you would start your second gas around halfway through the cybernetics core in order to fund that. But I'm suspecting that Banana Brain is going to go for what I mentioned earlier, which is that heavy Dragoon count play. Should we note that the second gateway is added way later than it was by Locutus in the previous game. It is going to be Dragoon range, which confirms our suspicions. We're going to start seeing Dragoon production soon, and there it is. We're actually going to see 3 gateways come up at once. Behind this, Monster has gone for their lair, and they're going to go for the Spire. So this is very reminiscent of what we saw in the Steamhammer versus Locutus game, but of course both players are different. They're going to manage their armies different. They're going to make different decisions throughout the game, I'm guessing. Second cannon just now coming up at the natural. I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary. I actually would have maybe preferred to see some cannons in the middle of the line in order to address this Mutalisk threat. Pylon at least is necessary in order to start thinking about adding those cannons there. No cannons in the main base either, and Mutalisks with their mobility and the fact that Dragoons will have to go up and down the ramp could create a good opening for Monster. Stargate just now coming up for Banana Brain, who did eventually take that second gas. Mutalisks are coming out in significant numbers though, and 3 Dragoons are not going to be enough to stem the tide, not even 5. So it's going to be interesting to see if Monster is going to be able to move out with these. The Sunkens here not going to be enough to hold this, and it's going to be a run-by. Interesting choice. Oh no, the Dragoons, they're opting to engage a little bit. I think the run-by was the right decision there, but the Dragoons are all going to go down. That's a disaster. The Zealot is going to get taken down by the drones. In the meantime, so many probes are going to go down for Banana Brain. Banana Brain is going to need to constantly produce them, and finally we're seeing some cannons being thrown down. This cannon, a little bit unfortunately placed, would have probably preferred to see them inside the middle line here. Stargate is going to start producing Sayers, but the Sayer might get picked off. It's already on low health. Oh, that Patrol micro. Nice splitting from Mulus. Yeah, they're eventually going to take that Corsair down. And again, there's no cannon in the natural either, so if the Mulus really wanted to, they could have engaged there. The Scourge do not pull back against the cannons. Dragoon count is significant though, but now the workers count has been hurt pretty significantly for Banana Brain, and Monster is catching up in a worker count on 3 bases. Great sunken lines, by the way, for Monster as well, and they are making that transition now into the Hydralisk tech, and they're still continuing to take down workers. So yeah, the Mulisks are definitely have justified their existence, even though most of them just went down. They forced the Protoss to go into a heavier Corsair count. They forced the Dragoons to stay back defensively as the tech transition happened, and a greater economy has been netted for Monster. But Banana Brain is by far no slouch, and they are going to keep up their own production of workers as well. Hydralisks now coming out. Hydralisks are going to fare quite nicely against the Zealot Dragoon composition, but they need the sufficient number and upgrades first. Looking at the upgrades, we do have +1 range, +1 armor already done, and interestingly enough, they're going for armor first here. Generally, if you're going for Hydralisk heavy composition, you want to go for that ranged upgrade because the 1 armor doesn't significantly impact the engagements that you have against Protoss. The reason why you get that armor upgrade is potentially if you're eventually planning on doing a Zergling Ultra Switch, at which point that armor upgrade is effective. However, it should be noted that behind this, Banana Brain does not have +1 attack, which is quite interesting. They actually went for Observer Speed first, perhaps worried about the presence of Lurkers. I don't think that we have Lurker tech yet. There it is. So maybe a little bit precognizant here, and you definitely want to have Observers already out if the opponent is going for Lurkers. You don't want a reactionary make robotics facility here. Burrowed Zerglings, by the way, all around the map, if in case you're wondering what those dots are. This is, as I said before, a Hallmark Monster move as well. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, there's at least 3 Hallmark Monster things if we consider the the ramp block and the what's called the Zerglings being placed here, and the ZVT Defiler play. Lurkers are now being used defensively at these bases. Very nicely done. I would like to maybe see a Spore Colony as well to deny the Observer vision. It becomes incredibly difficult to control those engagements. Dark Templar out on the map as well. Needs Overlord speed, does the Zerg player in order to start taking down those observers and to see those Dark Templar. Third base being put up with really no defenses at all. I'm surprised to see that it's such a ballsy move. In the meantime, we're seeing Monster take the other main here, and it's actually possibly the farther main. I would have expected maybe to take this main instead. But no, not yet. Zealots and Dragoons out forward, but we're not seeing any Templar or anything, and we're starting... Nope, actually, as I say that, of course, the first Templar does appear. Crowd control is going to be incredibly important against this composition from a monster, which is Zergling Hydralisk. Storm is incredibly important, but of course, the Hydralisks are very capable of dodging the Storms as well, splitting up in order to minimize the amount of damage, and the Lurker is doing quite well against the Dragoons. There's no Observer here, I think. No, there is one. But the Dragoons needed to take down that Lurker before the Zealots all fell to it, I think. It would have been very much the right decision there. There are more Lurkers defensively, though. The Dragoons are going down. This third base, I don't think it's been discovered yet, but this army was distracted for a moment going there. Dragoons are being micro quite nicely, though. They're kiting back against the army advancing. They're moving in and trying to do a little bit of damage to the sunken colonies, and now we're seeing one of Banana Brain's hallmarks here, which is that Reaver Shuttle Micro. The Reaver Shuttle Micro is going to be very effective against the Sunkens, at least, because they can't dodge. The Hydralisks, we know, are capable of running away from that splash damage from the Reaver and minimizing it. But the army count has kind of gone down for Banana Brain. So, the army count is 64 against 44. This is a kind of a normal distribution of workers versus army for both players at this moment, but I just don't see all of it coalescing into one scary push for Protoss, and I think that is something that Protoss needs to have in this matchup here. As Monster is taking the island bases as well now too, possibly going to, if it takes these two island bases, it could easily take more than 60% of the map, and that would in turn lead to a advantageous position for Monster for sure. In the meantime, Banana Brain has taken their fourth base here, still no defensive structures here, has not taken this expansion, is going to try again to push into this natural, but now that there's production in the backside, there's potential to flank, splitting up the Protoss army a little bit, which generally wants to stay in its ball formation. As you can see, the Storm's not quite effective here, didn't take down a single Hydralisk because of the splitting and due to the low number of Hydralisks there, but now maybe with the double shuttles, we're at a critical point where we might start seeing these Sunkens fall. It looks like the shuttles can't throw down the Reavers because they're always standing on top of a Dragoon. This is really bad for Banana Brain. Only one Sunken has gone down in exchange for the majority of its army, and Monster seems to have been trying to pressure here. A few cannons going down for Banana Brain. Reaver's finally finding the space to drop, but that's because they have lost most of their supporting army here, and they're not actually engaging with the sunken colonies at this time. They need to be a little bit closer in order to do so. They're not opting to do so. Scourge are running around, so maybe they're scared about that. Double storms here. Looks like one of the lurkers did get nibbled by that. Actually, both of them did. So there is a potential for a bust, but no, there's no backup army here. The Scourge are going to start taking down the shuttles. The Reavers are trying to crawl away. The Mutas and the Hydras are going to take them down. The Scourge chase down the remaining Sayers here, but they're not going to be able to do it. And again, Templar have just not been that effective against Monster here. Monster is on a monstrous 5-base economy, possibly thinking about going to a 6th base at some point soon. But will it actually matter? We saw some beautiful storm dodging there. Let me just take a look at that again. I'm going to try to go back a little bit more. And let's see. Yeah, this one, dodge that one. Easy. 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 Did get nibbled a little bit, but not in a significant number. And yeah, so casting 3 storms and getting 0 kills is not a place you want to be as a Protoss player. It's not where you expect to be as a human player, that's for sure. Muta's even harassing this mineral line from Banana Brain, and it's slowly but surely coming to a close here for Banana Brain as they lost the bulk of their army without being able to bust through that natural position. I can't help but feel that maybe if the Reavers could get dropped where the Dragoons weren't and could push down those Sunkens and the Lurkers, this could have ended up a little bit differently, but losing so much of their army so many times is a death sentence for any Protoss in any matchup, and here we're seeing that 6th base coming up for Monster in the other main base, threatening to take well more than 60% of the map at this point, closer to 75 most likely. Strong economy behind this with 60 workers against the 37 of Banana Brain, who's going to lose one of their last two mining bases, and this one's dangerously close to being mined out, has very few defensive structures, but it should be noted that the army has been pushed back a little bit by Banana Brain, but is that going to last? No, I don't think so. Not without a shuttle helping the Reaver Micro. The Dragoons are still being taken down by the Hydraling, which are the superior composition in this context. Yeah, the numbers are just not there, and yeah, I think that this is almost over for Banana Brain. On 18 army against 81, 46 workers against 62, and yeah, now the natural will fall, and the probes have to run away. The forge will fall, the Reaver will fall, the gateways will fall, and this base now is surely going to be undefended. So that's going to spell doom for Banana Brain, and Zerg is going to come out on top here again, making their way into the main base, and is going to start the cleanup. I'm going to use this opportunity to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting. Thank you all for participating in the Discord, in the chat. And yeah, next week you will be joined by Nightcat, presumably, who is going to return from vacation in time to record, I hope. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, wonderful day, wonderful end of the summer. Oh, I guess it's almost over, isn't it? Is September 23rd the last day of summer? I think it is. Wonderful fall, wonderful rest of the year, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.